Well, welcome everybody to our virtual happy hour for sustainability professionals. This event is sponsored by JadeTrack. We are a software company that helps organizations get on track to green savings. And our goal in this session is to provide a space where we can have a short speaker and then go into virtual networking so we can share best practices across our different industries and organizations so that we can move our work forward together for a greener planet. And folks, as you join, just go ahead and mute yourself as well, or Anthony can also mute folks during the presentation. So today we're very lucky to have Nolan Rains joining us from IGS Energy. He's going to give a brief introductory chat on energy savings with LED lighting. So I'll hand it over to him in one moment. Just wanted to note again, this event is sponsored by JadeTrack, where sustainability starts with reliable data. JadeTrack allows you to track your energy, water, waste, greenhouse gas emissions, and Energy Star scores for your buildings all in one platform. And we automate that data so you don't have to type it in manually. If you'd like to learn more about JadeTrack, you can visit jadetrack.com or you can reach out to me. We work with ambitious organizations who are on a mission to advance a triple bottom line for people, planet, and profit. So there might be some organizations that you recognize there. And at this point, I'm going to hand it over to Nolan.
All right, thank you, Katie. I know I was getting a little choppy on the audio for me, so if at any point I start to freeze up, let me know, but I think it's smoothed out. As Katie mentioned, my name is Nolan Rains. I'm with IGS Energy. We do a lot of different things in the energy world, but one of the specialties for myself is LED lighting. I know, Randy, when you were introducing yourself, you're in the turnkey lighting space for your company. I'll talk a little bit more about what that looks like a little further down the road, but I primarily focus on helping to our natural gas and electricity customers implement LED lighting within their organizations. So all different industries, all different applications, LED lighting can be a nice benefit. We'll go through some of those details here. And please don't hesitate to put questions in the chat. I'll keep an eye on it throughout, and we have time at the end for any questions. I thought a visual just would be nice to start. I'm sure everyone's familiar with lights. LEDs maybe in your home or in your organization. This is just one example. I realize it's not the exact same shot in the building, but from a manufacturer we worked with, in which the left is their legacy lighting system, the right is the LED upgrade. And it's almost hard to tell even how much it's been brightened up. You can see it here, but it was such a dramatic difference for them that they actually, their only complaint was their building. It was so clear that they needed a deep cleaning afterwards because they had not cleaned the ground and other areas in a number of years. So they increased their light levels significantly. I think we dropped their usage by about 60% along the way as well. And we'll talk more details a little further on other benefits of LED, but I figured a visual was a good place to start. All right, and now we're going to talk about some of the key benefits of LED lighting and work our way around this wheel. So first, we have efficiency. Obviously, I think that's probably the top priority for most organizations. Is LEDs can be up to 30 to even 70% more efficient than legacy lighting. So when you're trying to make a case for sustainability, the savings is definitely there for LED. Environmental safety. Many older technologies, especially a lot of the fluorescents that you'll find, whether they're long tubes or different types of fixtures, they will actually have mercury in the fixture. So everyone should be environmentally compliant in their recycling of them. Fortunately, I've heard some horror stories that that's not always the case, but regardless, even having mercury in your facility is just not ideal, especially if something were to fall and break, or you're working with it on a day in and day out basis. LEDs are much easier to recycle and retire. Temperature. So LEDs, they emit about 20 to 50% less heat than older technologies. That may not seem like a big deal for most organizations. However, in general, having less heat in your facility can be good, especially we have some clients who are in the grocery space, or anytime you have product where there needs to be kept cold or cool and there are lights nearby. You can imagine a grocery store cooler, you got lights that are emitting heat right next to products that you're keeping cold, it can increase your energy spend to keep the coolers in check. So LEDs are much better on that front. Reaction time, LED lights can be switched on and off instantaneously. Again, may not seem like a huge deal, but especially if you're in an environment where, if you think about more old school stadium lighting, you'll see lights, or a lot of maybe gymnasiums even. I've seen, people have to wait 15 minutes for their lights to heat up and turn on. They also, if you turn them off, they have a reset period where they won't really function for a period of time. So LEDs take that out of the mix and you're able to just easily turn them on and off like a normal electronic. Longer lifespan, this is where we start to really, you have the savings of 30 to 70%. You start to get into that paired with lights that could last 50 times longer than a legacy technology. That is not only good for the costs of the business, but it's also helpful when it comes to the environmental side. They're lasting longer, so there's less waste. You're having to replace them less often, and it becomes a win for everyone. That transitions into maintenance. Because they're lasting longer, they just have less maintenance requirements. If someone's running their lights a long time, 24/7, or even 3/4 of the year, lights could be burning out every year to 3 years tops with older technologies, whereas LEDs can last anywhere from 5 to 15 years, depending on the application. Color variety may not seem like a huge deal, but I actually have a slide here in a second that will show the different color spectrum for normal applications in a business setting. And as you get into more creative architectural applications, you can also see on a different slide that I have some different color variations that can get really creative. And bottom line, LEDs are very customizable when it comes to the color side. And durability, kind of similar to what I touched on in environmental safety. They're solid component fixtures. So what that means is, older technologies have this glass coating, and then there's actually gases, mercury and other things in there as well that are moving between. And if that were to fall and break, they can create a hazardous environment, especially if you're in any type of food manufacturing, or even if you have people just moving around in your facility. Having something that's more stable and more durable, like LED fixtures and lighting, is definitely a great benefit too. Visually, and this is honestly just the tip of the iceberg in terms of all the different colors you can create, but we're talking hues of white light. You all may be familiar kind of with the left side of the spectrum being more maybe like a warm home environment or maybe a cafe, whereas the middle of the road is typically where we see more of an office setting, a manufacturing area, general lighting. You can start to trend to the cooler, as you would call it, the cool hues when you get into really detailed manufacturing spaces and you want to see even a small crack on the side of a product or something that's there. The whole point of this is to show that the diodes are incredibly customizable, and there are even lights that you can flip between the color settings. So they're color selectable. You could have something be in the middle for one portion of the day and flip to another color setting, at a different time, if you'd like to do that. But many customers like having some customization, just because people get very particular, especially when you start working in office areas, on how they want the lights to be swapped out. So I think this also is more of a residential application, but if you start talking LEDs and really get into more, artistic design, architectural scenarios, they can span the entire color spectrum, flip between them very easily. I'm not going to stay on this point for too long today, other than to give you a nice visual of what they can do. But if anyone does have a very specific architectural application, there are design options out there for you. Other benefits of upgrading to LED today. So for anyone who's in energy procurement as well, or you work with your team on that side, national power prices in particular are on the rise, especially as we head into this winter and the forward-looking years. So as power prices go up, the sustainability and energy efficiency initiatives become that much more valuable. If power rate goes up 20%, the payback on an LED project is going to benefit from that. Obviously not ideal to have increased costs for your organization, but if we can spin it into a positive for those in sustainability, I think it really helps you make the business case for upgrading to things like LED. Also, many states, and it does go state by state, and even portion of the state will vary, but many states still have utility rebates. There's government grants that, depending on your sector, may be available. There's also green loan programs, efficiency auditing that can be covered for upgrades, things of that nature. If you have any specific questions and want to talk about that afterwards, we can look at it on a case-by-case basis, but there are a lot of support initiatives out there. And there is a lot of federal support. You've probably seen the headlines coming through for things like the IRA recently or the infrastructure investment last year. Those are all great, and they do have some potential benefits for LED, especially allowing non-taxable entities to take advantage of some federal programs that are out. But thankfully, a lot of the good incentives that I'll touch on the next slide are actually in place indefinitely and have been for about 2 years now, and they can really help your project as well. Main difference is that non-taxable entities, you're good, Katie, to stay on this, that non-taxable entities can now take advantage of this. Not going to read this word by word. Like I said, I'm happy to share this deck with you all afterwards, but there are 3 buckets of key tax benefits for people looking at upgrading. This is separate from utility rebates, any other savings that are there. When you start talking about 60 cents per square foot of a tax deduction or other forms of stackable tax benefits on top of everything else, we've seen some scenarios where customers have paybacks on LED projects less than a year. I would say that's an every case scenario. Some people may be in more of a 3 to 5 year payback window, but if you start to stack these things together, especially if you're in a higher price power market, California, East Coast, West Coast areas in particular, you can see really quick paybacks right now, especially because those areas typically have more progressive legislation at a state level backing all of this up. Happy to talk about this a little bit or send some more info afterwards, but it does pretty quickly get into CPA land. And so I'll keep moving along for now, but if you have any specific questions, please feel free to mention. Market adoption. So this is pretty simple. We used EPA information here. I didn't have a footnote on that, but this is just, where we're at today and projections of LED market adoption. You can see, from 2020 to 2025, we're almost doubling the number of this is commercial businesses that have adopted LED. By the time we get to 2030, we're at about 80%. And it will start to taper off from there. From what I've been told, even probably by 2050, we'll never be at 100% just based off of how some businesses operate and stay in a legacy environment. Only way that might change is if they go out of manufacturing capabilities for the older technologies. Main point being, this next, call it, 8-year window is the main period in which everyone will be upgrading in a general sense. So if you haven't done it yet, definitely a good window of time to start looking at it, because as adoption goes up, incentives will tend to taper off, especially at utilities. So you're typically at a sweet spot right now where it's still incentivized above, just a simple payback, but that will go away eventually. Last thing, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because the goal today is really just to help you all understand the benefits for your organization, but I did have this from another presentation and wanted to include a little bit of how we go about it. Like I said, I know there's at least one other person on here that's in turnkey lighting, but if you are looking at doing this for your organization, I would just make sure that there's a lot of trust and transparency with who's doing the upgrade. Lights may seem simple, but they are going to impact your core business. They are a construction project in your facility. And because there is such a rush to get this done, we've seen a lot of different players in the space, some of them not with a long-term mindset. And so the last thing you want is to have a really exciting project being worked on, and then somehow it turns into a headache for your organization. If you want to put the last part on there, Katie, just as an example, a lot of companies that do a turnkey style of it should have a good conversation on the front end, take in all the details of your space in depth, help you design a solution that's going to not only just upgrade your lights, but they can do, lighting designs and help you understand how much the light's going to increase, give you very firm, and this area I would say is probably the biggest caution I will give. They will give you detailed and transparent savings calculations. With us being in the energy world, we go pretty in depth with this. We have seen a wide array of the ways that people will fluff numbers to make a project look better. They might get the deal done today, but you know, a year or two down the road may not be happy with the savings that aren't trickling through. So if you start to feel red flags along the way, press people for details, make sure you understand where the numbers are coming from. And if they can't answer those questions, then it's a bit of a red flag. Outside of that, you know, they'll oversee the project from start to finish and should be there to help support you after the sale and to help with any warranty claims if they do come up.